Welcome into CBS Sports HQ. Amanda Gary, Jenny Dell here. It has been a very interesting week. We made it to Friday. Congratulations.
We made it to Friday. I'm just smiling because I'm sitting on the desk with you.
We're sporting the turtlenecks because down here in South Florida, it is way too cold. Northeast, come get your weather. Somebody who will be, well, I guess, contending with really hot weather during this summer, Pete Carroll, heading over to the Raiders as their new head coach. It feels like every day this week, all these teams with vacancies, they've gone ahead and hired someone.
We were just talking about what a busy week it's been with the coaching carousel, with the latest being Pete Carroll going over to Las Vegas and the Raiders. Carroll spent 14 seasons as the head coach in Seattle before parting ways with the Seahawks after the 2023 season. His career highlights include a college football national championship at USC, a Super Bowl title with the Seahawks in 2013. Now he replaces Antonio Pierce with the Raiders, who have made only one playoff appearance in the past 8 seasons. Time for that to change. Let's welcome in our Jonathan Jones. JJ, you were all over it yesterday. Pete Carroll, the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. How did this deal come together?
So, Jenny, they wanted Ben Johnson last weekend. This time last week, they had their eyes set on Ben Johnson. And when I say they, I'm talking about Tom Brady, who has been running this search. Mark Davis is the owner, the day-to-day operator. Tom Brady is the head honcho, and Mark Davis ceded over control to Tom Brady, saying, look, man, I've been trying to do this one way. It clearly hasn't worked. Tom, you handle this. And so at general manager, they hired John Spytek, whom Brady has known for more than a quarter century, going back to their Michigan days where they played together. That got official yesterday, had been in the works for several days. After they missed out on Ben Johnson, once he signed with the Chicago Bears, the Raiders then changed their focus. They hit reset and they said, okay, what do we need to do with this team, with this organization, with this franchise? We need a culture reset, and we need a heavy hitter at head coach. Why? Look at his resume right there. And the resumes that we're not going to have up there are of Andy Reid and Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton, guys who aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So you better get a really good head coach. There you have their resumes in the AFC West. And so right there, you have potentially 4 Hall of Famers, right? I mean, that is not a hyperbole when I say that. And so now they obviously have to get a quarterback because this is, if it's not the best coaching division in football, it may be the best quarterback division in football, but they're going to get a guy in Pete Carroll. I know there's a report out there of a shorter deal, 3 or 4 years. Typically a head coach deal is 5 to 6 years. That probably has something to do with his age at 73 years old. Let's change the culture. Let's get this thing rolling in the right direction, and then we'll see as things move along. But the Raiders needed someone to come in and save the franchise. They got that in Tom Brady when he bought in. They're getting that at general manager with John Spytek, and of course they're getting it now with a 4-time NFL head coach, Pete Carroll.
Quite the win there. You just mentioned the age there, 73 years old. So you're saying 3 or 4 years. So what do you think they do as far as the succession plan? Are they going to bring in some other names that maybe can learn under Pete Carroll, or do you think they just go with Carroll as the head coach, see where it kind of goes from there? What's the plan as far as the long-term effect of this decision?
Yeah, Jenny, great question. That's a fantastic question, and I don't know that anyone could necessarily answer that right now. They do want, and obviously they have Pete Carroll, and they feel really good. And, you know, look, it's a 3 or 4 year deal. Maybe there's an extension. Maybe this guy never ages. Maybe it's a Benjamin Button deal, right? And he just is aging. He looks fantastic, right, for any age. And so who knows ultimately what's going to happen. I haven't heard any names in terms of offensive coordinator just yet. Carl Scott is somebody who worked with him on the defensive side in Seattle. He could potentially be a defensive coordinator candidate. Patrick Graham has already been there with the Raiders. He's been interviewing other places. He could potentially stay on as defensive coordinator. Kennedy Polamalu, longtime running backs coach out of USC, would have to imagine that he would be following Pete Carroll to Las Vegas from Seattle. Just a couple of names. But in terms of the long-term succession plan, I think right now they just want Pete Carroll to get them on the right track, and that's something that we know he's able to do.
Seems like they got the right guy there. Okay, now we're going to go over to the Jaguars, who are trying to figure out the right guy over there. Now, you know, there's a lot of rumors out there that they're nearing a deal with Liam Cohen as their next head coach. So he took his name out of the running for the job on Wednesday. Monday. He agreed to a contract extension to remain with the Bucs as their offensive coordinator. Then the Jags parted way with their GM, Trent Baalke, okay? Cohen then reconnected with Jacksonville on Thursday. JJ, this timeline, it's a little bit odd. Baalke now gone. What are you hearing? What's the latest out of Jacksonville?
Yeah, you absolutely got that timeline correct. That Liam Cohen, he was not all that interested in going to the Jags with their offer and with Trent Baalke as general manager. Then, after he agrees to a deal that's going to pay him somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.5 million per year, which is at the top of the list in terms of offensive coordinator candidates, Jacksonville fires Trent Baalke, and then they call Liam Cohen back, and they say, hey, not only do we no longer have the GM that you may or may not wanted to work with, and let's say may not, we also have an enhanced offer for you, and I'm talking about money. And so then Liam Cohen said, oh, I might have to hear them out. I'm being told that Tampa, they knew, of course, that Jacksonville was still interested. I had reported as such a couple of days ago. And so because of that, there was a little bit of a hard deadline. There was a push from Tampa. Hey, let's get this contract signed. Don't you go back to Jacksonville. We want to keep you. And so then he goes to Jacksonville in person, and he's there, and the Jags tried to keep this a secret. And they tried to keep it a secret in part because, Jenny, let's be completely honest here. They had Patrick Graham in the building for an interview. They had to interview Patrick Graham because he would fulfill the Rooney Rule. Patrick Graham is a black man. They needed another person of color to interview in person before they could ultimately make a hire. They knew they wanted Liam Cohen. They knew they were going down the path of it. And ultimately, they tried to kind of keep them separated. Word got out while both were still in the building, which is terrible form and bad ball and has been panned across the NFL among people that I have spoken with since last night. Ultimately, though, is any of that going to matter when it comes to the Jaguars? I don't think that they care. Liam Cohen is going to be a very well-paid, highly paid coach of one of 32 NFL franchises. That deal should get done at any point today on Friday. And then the Buccaneers are going to have to find their next offensive coordinator. They're going to be searching for one again because they lost Dave Canales 2 years ago. Now they're losing Liam Cohen this year. And so that's where we stand right here in the state of Florida.
And when that deal does get done, you know we'll be hitting you up, JJ, because that's what we do here on HQ. We break news and we bring on Jonathan Jones to confirm it. All right, so that would leave us then with the Saints and the Cowboys as the only two head coaching vacancies. So it seems like we're also waiting for an announcement maybe that the Cowboys are going to go with Brian Schottenheimer over there as their next head coach. But it is Jerry Jones. You never know what he's going to do. What do you think he's going to do, JJ?
Jenny, do you just want to break the news? Like, you and I have done this so much, right? So just, I know you want to say it. I know you want to say Brian Schottenheimer's the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
But
I can't say it just yet. I do believe that ultimately that is what is going to happen in Dallas. That's what all the sources that I speak to believe. It could have potentially happened yesterday. They have talked at length more than the Cowboys have talked to any other coaching candidate. The 51-year-old longtime coach in the NFL, son of legendary coach Marty Schottenheimer. He does appear to be in the driver's seat. No one will be shocked or surprised if and when he ultimately is officially named the Dallas Cowboys head coach. They shouldn't be surprised at this point. Had I told you that a week ago, you would have said, hold on, I don't really understand. And a lot of folks would say, well, why did they not retain Mike McCarthy? Why and go with Brian Schottenheimer? That's a great question that I can't wait to hear from Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones about this process that has been unique, but that's the way that the Dallas Cowboys ultimately want to do things. They also did interview Kellen Moore. We know that he is the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. He had played and coached for the Dallas Cowboys. Kellen Moore will also be in the mix with the New Orleans Saints. They are going to be interested in potentially talking with Kellen Moore next week as they sort of hit reset on their search. Aaron Glenn clearly was the top target for them. He goes to the Jets. On Friday, they are interviewing Anthony Weaver, the defensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins. On Saturday, they will be interviewing Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator of the New York Giants. And then they're going to hope to interview both Kellen Moore and Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. I don't know that there's a date yet set for former Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy, but they do have some interest in speaking with him in person as well. So in this coaching carousel, Jenny, where we've had 7 openings, and these things, the dominoes really started to fall starting on Monday with the Ben Johnson hire in Chicago. I do believe that by next week, we will have just 1 opening, and that will be in New Orleans, and then they'll be able to choose from their available pool of candidates.
Is that chair comfortable you're sitting in, JJ, right now?
Yeah, it's great.
I would suggest you just stay there for the whole day, because I feel like we're going to be coming back to you. Yeah, get your coffee, get a little snack. I feel like we're going to have lots of chats with you today, Jonathan Jones, the latest in the NFL. You are the best of the best, that's for sure. You mentioned it. There were 7 openings. Now just 3 teams still looking for their head coach. We got the Saints, the Jags, and the Cowboys. We're going to see what happens there. Just keep streaming with us here on CBS Sports HQ for all the latest in the NFL. We'll be breaking news. We'll have all the analysis you can want and need 24/7 here on HQ.
Coming up, so Pete Carroll has been hired as the new head coach of the Raiders, but can he save the Raiders? Can he bring stability to that team? We'll ask 2 former players who played against Pete Carroll on the other side.